Hello, this is Ray Motor from ACG, and welcome to another version of the Hot Seat. A few months ago, Cisco made a major announcement in the service provider core space. And as you know, in the Hot Seat, what we tend to do is do a follow-up after the announcement. We engage with a lot of equity analysts, as well as a lot of service provider customers, and look to fill the gaps or take a deeper dive. With us today is Suraj Shetty from Cisco, who's Vice President for Service Provider Marketing. Suraj, welcome. Thank you for joining the Hot Seat. What we want to do today is literally address some of the follow-up questions that we had. And the first part that we had was related to the math. There was some parts that there was a lot of confusion either from the equity analysts or for some of the service providers about the 140 gig line cards. Could you get a little clarification on how that came about and how the numbers, because we don't see it as a multiple of the CRS1.
I think there is an impression in the marketplace that started with some of our competition that when they couldn't do 100 gig, they did 2 by 50 gig. So the assumption was it has to be a multiple of 40 gig. I think what we did with CRS3 was we created a single flow 140 gig line card and the switch fabric to go with it. And the whole point was that you can have single flow of data coming in. You don't have to deal with multiple flows, which is kind of a huge challenge, especially as you look at video applications. If the packet comes out of sequence or have head-up line blocking, you can have a degraded experience from a video perspective itself. So CRS3 is designed from ground up. When you did the 40 gig, it was single flow. With 140 gig, it is single flow.
Okay.
So 4 years ago when we introduced CRS1, it changed the rules of the game. At that time, when you look at the first or the second generation of core routers, they were pretty much designed to scale up to less than 1 terabits. We changed it up to 92 terabits and we set a whole new bar within the core of the network. Now when you look at what has happened in the last 4 years, video traffic has gone to the roof. When you look at 40% of the internet traffic today is video, online video, 60% by 2012. Every day, 65,000 new videos are being posted on YouTube. And YouTube didn't exist as a company till 3 years ago. So we don't know what are the next set of services that's going to come, but you can bet on it, it's going to be all video related. Just like I'm blogging with you guys today. It's a new medium. And when you have these kind of high bandwidth applications, even when you look at YouTube, it's 300K streaming. High def camera comes along, you're talking about 3 to 4 times bandwidth per stream alone. And there are 2 billion videos already being watched on YouTube. So what do you do? I mean, edge of the network is where all these different applications, bulk of them being video as we talked about, is coming together. And that's where new innovation is needed. Just like how we did with CRS1, with ASR 1000, we are seeing a whole different design of how the next generation of routers are going to be built. You start off first with the quantum flow processor. Now, what used to be multiple processors running on different blades before, we have condensed that into a chip. It's a groundbreaking silicon with about 800 million transistors, 40 cores.
Hello fellow Vikings. Congratulations on the ASR 9000 joining the $1 billion club at Cisco. I still remember year 2008 when I got this hat. It was just 2 months after the financial crisis, and ASR 9K, or Project Viking at the time, was to be brought to the market. The pressure was on to deliver a great launch which would make some noise during this depressing time. And boy, did we deliver on a great platform, as well as the customers voting it with it now that we have crossed $1 billion in revenue. Again, congratulations. You continue to build this platform, we'll continue to market it.
Hello, hi, this is Suraj Shetty with Cisco Systems. I'm here on the Nextcom trade show floor, and I'm joined here by Ray Motor, who's the Chief Strategy Officer for Synergy. Hey Ray,
So what's going on the trade show floor here? What are the key takeaways?
Yeah, it's interesting. Is even though the traffic's slow, there's a lot of excitement around what I call rich media services like IPTV. And it seems that we've talked about IPTV for a while, but now for the first time in a long time is actually really getting deployed. And a lot of the service providers are realizing that they either need to do it in order to compete properly, but more importantly, extend and increase the average revenue per user. So it's interesting to see because it's a common theme across the board with all the service providers, and it's helping new converged services in order to migrate and reduce the cost and how to deploy IPTV properly. So that's the big thing that I'm seeing across the board.
So what do vendors like Cisco do?
Well, one of the things they need to do is to understand the pain points for some of the service providers, that they're in a dilemma from the standpoint that their average revenue per user is going down and their cost per bit or profit per bit is going down. So they need to educate some.
Hello and welcome to today's Cisco TV session on evolving to the next generation internet. Today we're going to build on what we said back in June. Exactly 2 months ago, we announced the ASR 9000 system. And I think what we introduced back then was a brand new technology called the NV technology, which is going to completely redefine now mobile networks. What you will hear today is some very exciting stuff. I'll kick it off by talking about how does IPNGN, which we talked about way back in 2006, has evolved now to a next generation internet architecture. We'll talk about new platforms, 3 new platforms, 9001, 901, 903. And Kit will tell us, what does that mean from a competitive standpoint? Why should we have a no-lose attitude out here? And why should we win every deal out there and gain our fair market share back? But first, let's understand why this is all needed. We'll first start with what's driving all of this? The mobile internet. There is more bandwidth. There is more computing. There is more devices out there. And when you look at all of this, you need faster and faster speeds. Now, when you add all of these things up, we are creating a perfect storm, not just for speed and bandwidth, but also for services. Just look at what happened with Apple phones and look at all the applications that came along in less than 2 years. We used to just get email on BlackBerry. Now everything is to an iPhone, all the way from e-commerce to entertainment. The market is changing so fast. There is a 2,600% increase in mobile data traffic just from 2010 to 2015. So let's understand what is needed for the next generation internet. What is our expectations, you and me as a consumer? The first thing you want is more mobile. Especially in many parts of the world, mobile is the device.
San Jose reporting for BTV and NBC Bay Area as part of our series of interviews with Cisco. We had the chance to talk to an executive there about Cisco's new router, what it is, what it does, and who benefits. Tell us about the demand that you're seeing for video on the internet and what's needed to manage all of that traffic.
So when we look at it today, what we have is about an average user in US consumes about 12 gigabytes. That's roughly equivalent to about 32 to 40 DVDs per month, versus an average global speed is about 4 gig per user, which is about 8 DVDs per month. When we look into the future, we are talking about 15 terabits. Just to give you an idea how much 15 terabits is, that's equivalent to 3,750 DVDs per user per month. And that's going to be enabled by those 3D televisions which just hit the market. Telepresence, and you will see consumer telepresence. You will see business telepresence for video communications. So video is going to be the primary driver for those 15 terabits, or about 3,750 DVDs per month per user in the future.
And of course, that's going to change how traffic gets managed. And you're getting a lot of attention because of a new router that you're introducing that is sort of regarded as this super speed, supersonic router. What is it exactly and how does it work?
I think to define how an experience, a video experience that you and I as consumer can enjoy, you've got to break it up into 2 components. The one which comes to your home, whether it's your cable connection or your DSL connection, could be fiber connection in many parts of the world. Now that could be anywhere from a couple of megs to 50 meg, 100 meg, and 1 gig in several parts of the world too. Now that's one part of the problem. So you have opened up the last mile. Then you have this internet freeway, the superhighway, which connects the different data centers together, for example, the different websites together, where the video content might be stored. So what we announced with CRS-3 or Carrier Routing System 3 is a capacity which has about 322 terabits. Now, just to give you how big that is, you can transfer the entire Library of Congress, the US Library of Congress, in 1 second.
Hi, this is Suraj-Farewell-Intro. I've been involved in a lot of launches over the years, but this one stands out. This launch of Videoscape is transformational not only for Cisco, but for you and me as consumers. And our aspirations will be unleashed at CES in January. With me today are Enrique Rodriguez, SVP and General Manager of Video Technology Group. Enrique, welcome.
Hello, Suraj.
Also joining us over telepresence is Steve Silver, Vice President, Worldwide Video Practice. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
As well as Larry Bradner, Vice President of Advanced Services via telepresence from Atlanta. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us as we introduce Cisco Videoscape.
Hello and welcome to the Vibe Extra. I'm Karen Snell, and with me this afternoon is Suraj Shetty, Vice President of Product and Solutions Marketing at Cisco. Suraj leads the company's product and solutions marketing function in video, emerging technologies and solutions, mobility, and routing for the service provider and enterprise sectors globally. Throughout his 15-year tenure at Cisco, he has held a variety of senior management roles, giving him broad experience across Cisco's products and solutions. Welcome, Suraj.
Thank you, Karen.
And just a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
So, you're the guy behind VNI, the Visual Networking Index, a very popular study that comes out of Cisco each year, which just released a couple of weeks ago. Tell us a little bit about what that forecast around mobile traffic, what that looks like in the coming years.
I think one of the things that my team does is every year we announce this Visual Networking Index, actually 3 times a year. We did the mobile one back in February, and we did the overall global IP traffic forecast 2 weeks ago, and there's a cloud one. When we did the mobile announcement, what we said is by 2016, the traffic will grow almost 18 times. In fact, for the last 4 years, the mobile internet traffic has been doubling every year. And this kind of tells you kind of the huge impact. And one of the biggest changes that we saw was the impact of tablets. Just a category that did not exist 3 years ago will almost be 8% of the overall mobile traffic. So again, phenomenal changes there.
I'm going to play the role of the customer for a moment. How will this rapid growth of mobile traffic in the enterprise affect my business?
I think you need to look at this thing, especially as this BYOD concept becomes extremely pervasive out there. When your employees are bringing tablets and connecting to your network, you need to figure out what kind of permission, what kind of contextual policies that you have to apply. And that has huge implications, especially when you stream video. One of the things that you will see on Jabber pretty soon is telepresence being streamed directly over a Jabber client on a tablet. Now that's a beautiful thing from an experience perspective. Who wouldn't want that? But you got to worry about that from a network perspective. So that has quite a big implication. Productivity goes up, but you got to worry about how all of this thing works from an end-to-end perspective.
So, technology is moving fast. I think in one keynote I heard, I think it was John's, I don't want to misquote, but there used to be a kind of a wave of new technologies, and now it's more like a tsunami when things are changing so fast and rapidly. What does the new normal look like for service providers and the enterprise?
You know what, Karen, I think, let me take you back to 1995, right? I don't know if you remember that 56K modems was announced back then. That was like a radical change. And US Robotics said back then their stock doubled and whatnot. Then came DSL. We got more speed. As more speed came along, Netscape was born. When you go back to 2001, more speed came along, peer-to-peer kind of application. Now, a lot of that was not legal probably, but we'll not go there right now. 2005, we got more speed. Guess what? YouTube came along. And back then it was grainy video. I don't know if you remember that. But now if you look at, as more and more bandwidth came along, you have much better quality of data.
HD capabilities, yeah.
You know what's changed is, to get to 56K modem took us almost 30 years. In 15 years, we went from 56K modems to 10 megabits per second. On an average, one of the things we said is, V&I, that it will be 9 meg per user. That will be what we have today. It will be 38 meg by 2016. So imagine you give more bandwidth, there will be applications that will keep coming and using up that bandwidth. What's even more important is it's coming across multiple devices. That's become a new normal. Application drives more devices, devices come across with more network usage, and that drives more application. That's absolutely the new normal we live in.
So again, putting on my customer hat again, how can my network keep up with this rapid growth in mobile and apps while still controlling growth? While still controlling costs?
I think that's one of the biggest questions that all of our customers ask. One of the things we do really well is the importance of an intelligent network. Now, intelligent network can come in multiple trends. We talked about BYOD, bring your own device. There is this whole concept of connected cloud, where you have cloud where you put all your applications on. So what you have to figure out is, you have to decide how you're going to leverage these technologies to your benefit. And these will help you drive costs down. And I will just take a simple example on mobility, on a Wi-Fi perspective. We have great amount of technologies which allows you to maximize your connection to your network, and that helps you, along with, for example, a MediaNet technology, to distribute video over your intelligent network itself. So your intelligent network needs to be aware of mobile devices that comes on board, as well as applications like video, and then figure out how to handle it. So huge opportunity for our customers to increase the productivity of their employees while leveraging the intelligent network that Cisco is deploying.
What's the role of Wi-Fi in this increasingly mobile environment?
Wi-Fi, in the last few years, and thanks again to Apple and Steve Jobs, since the tablet came along, Wi-Fi has been one of the dominant ways of connecting to the network. Just to give you an idea, one of the things we predicted in our Visual Networking Index by 2016, over 50% of the traffic is not going to go over your 3G or your 4G connection. It is going to go over your Wi-Fi connection. And that just tells you the relevance of Wi-Fi. Now, this is not just your home or in Starbucks. We're talking about even in the office environment. And Wi-Fi will have a major role to play. And it will be one of the ways which can actually, one of the other things it's important to understand is there is not enough spectrum out there for 3G and 4G. So as this bandwidth continues to, applications takes up more bandwidth, Wi-Fi becomes a much efficient and cheaper way of offloading that traffic.
What role does the Internet of Things play in the new normal you were just talking about?
In the new normal, going back to our forecast we made 2 weeks ago, 19 billion devices will be deployed by 2016. 19 billion, right? So imagine we have 7 billion people on planet Earth, according to the United Nations, multiple options of deploying your network. So I think that's what we are focused on. And in fact, a lot of the announcements we did in the last 2 days kind of touches on a lot of those points.
Yeah, we're here at Cisco Live 2012 in San Diego. What is it that you're hearing out on the floor? What's the buzz that's really catching your attention?
I think cloud clearly is the number one piece that you hear everywhere. SDN is another one. I think the software-defined networking, and the Cisco one that we announced today, I think, kind of is one of the addresses one of the key questions that our customers have, which is, how can I get to cloud? How can I deal with the BYOD, right? What are the devices? And they're all integrated, by the way. They're all interconnected. Though we kind of look at it through multiple dimensions, they're all interconnected, because if I have an app device, I want to get into an enterprise, to my office network, and I want to access content which might be on a cloud, virtual VXI, for example, or virtual desktop. Those are kind of the things that's happening. how does the security get analyzed, and you can see a lot of that buzz around the event itself.
You are in an exciting spot at Cisco. Thank you so much, Suraj Shetty, Vice President of Product and Solutions Marketing at Cisco, and thank you so much for watching the Vibe Extra.
What I'm going to do is kind of wrap up a lot of the things you heard in the morning today. And what I promise you is I'm not going to put a single architecture slide up there, even though I run solutions. That's my promise. You'll not find too many words on my slides either. That'll be nice, pretty slides. What I'm going to talk about is the why part of it. Why should a customer care about what we do? I think Wilma and John pointed out early on, we have some amazing assets. When you think about a company which can do licensed and unlicensed, there is only Cisco. When you think about a company that can do enterprise and SP, there's only Cisco. Then why are we having these conversations on pricing only? And that's one of the things that I'm going to focus on and talk about how can we address the why. Last week, Ed Chang, myself, we were at a Telecom Italia meeting where their CEO, Marco Picciuano, and his entire crew was here. And we kind of tested this thing out to see whether it resonates or not. And it was very interesting. And I'll kind of highlight some of the things when the customers summarized what their key takeaways were, but exactly what we wanted them to do. So for the next 30 minutes, I would ask you to shut down your laptops. I'm going to ask all the leaders out there who are watching you guys. Okay, so just stay tuned for it. So first, why is Wi-Fi important? I think Keith touched on it early on. This is what we did at Mobile World Congress. You see the thing that you see, the map is all the booths where we had like across 7 or 8 halls, and the red areas is where the high Wi-Fi usage happened. We ran the whole Wi-Fi network out there. But what you don't know is this data. 20 terabytes of data was transferred in 4 days. Imagine this data going over a licensed network in 4 days. What kind of experience and the cost the service provider would have to have. There were like 20,000 active concurrent sessions. This was by far the biggest deployment you can think about, where you have a lot of sophisticated users like us who is trying to use the network. And we kind of tested and passed it in flying colors. What's even more important is the data that you see around it. This is the analytics part of it. Business outcome is not about network only. It's about what the network analytics can do and what decisions they can make based on it. And that's where I'm going to touch a lot of my points on. Fira, who runs Mobile World Congress, next year is going to use this data to charge each of the exhibitors very differently. So this is the power of data analytics coming from Wi-Fi or license. So based on the red area that you saw, where people congregate more, guess what? You're going to pay a premium, a vendor is going to pay a premium for those hotspots. That is the power of Cisco. It's not about just deploying a Wi-Fi network. It's making decisions and helping GSMA and FIRA make those valuable business decisions going downstream. And that's what we understand. We understand our customer's customer better than anybody out there. Good day, this is Suraj-Farewell-Intro. Welcome to today's session on Cloud Wars. Cloud has really come to the forefront in the last few years. In fact, today, in the Cloud Index that we just published, we talked about how the traffic in the data center and cloud is going to go from 1.1 zettabytes in 2010 to 4.8 zettabytes by 2015. That's equivalent to 67 trillion hours of streaming music. Now, out of that, 1.6 zettabytes of traffic will be generated in the cloud alone by 2014. Now, that tells you that cloud and the cloud offerings have become really mature over the last few years. Now, the big question is, what has Cisco got to offer in the cloud? You probably have a lot of questions around it. Today, with Cloud Wars, you will hear us articulate an architectural platform which will enable new set of capabilities that you can develop that can be only delivered by Cisco. Without further ado, let's hear it from Padma and Simon of what Cloud Wars really is. Padma?
Hello, I'm Padma Shri Warrior. I'm pleased to introduce you to Cisco's point of view on the next step in the evolution of the internet cloud. Which was important, but really, and we were focused on that, and Suraj always educated us really well. He was very, very patient with me, in particular, because I had a lot of questions about a technology I didn't understand. The first piece of that technology was DSL. So if you really want to go back and look at the chapters of Suraj, we actually showed the world that Cisco could serve the carrier market and our role in DSL, and you cannot underestimate how powerful that was for us at the time. That was an entry point. I mean, there was other things going on with ATM and others, but really that's where you drove a story all the way through, and investors just soaked it up. Because remember, every day there was a new carrier to sell to. Whether or not they actually had money to pay for it was not an issue that investors focused on. But I remember the days with Suraj talking about DSL and explaining what it was, and on the one hand explaining to me, the IR person, and then going out with investors and having a dialogue. And then we moved to the days of Juniper, and we had so much fun together. You know, if it hadn't been for Suraj and some of the team over there, we wouldn't have been effective at, actually pointing out the flaws in Juniper way back in the early 2000s and late 90s when they had a packet forwarding problem and when they had issues. We could just chat with investors, and boom, it became a broad research node, courtesy of Suraj. It was fantastic. And then we continued our moves in service provider, and Suraj, you were always such an incredible supporter of the work that my team did, regardless of what team I was leading at the time. There was a huge partnership there. And it was so interesting because Suraj and I have spoken many times about how very different we are, but yet cut from very much the same cloth, very much a yin and the yang. And I think that's why we worked so well together for so long, because we complemented. I've learned a lot from you. I've learned a lot about my communication style. I've learned a lot about how sausage is made in market share reporting, by the way. He is the sausage king of market share reporting. You've been very generous with your intelligence, with me in particular, in terms of how I've learned about the markets you've led. And your accomplishments as a leader, you may have gotten out of the way, but you were the leader. And this team has done some just amazing things. And as I was reflecting upon some of the characteristics that I think make such a powerful leader, clearly you have many of them. You set a vision, and that's not really an easy thing to do, because you keep an eye on a vision, you know the destination. You are extremely honest and transparent. One of the things that Suraj and I have had for many, many years is a very, very candid set of discussions. And sometimes you know when to ask for forgiveness as opposed to permission, and I really respect that. And there were many times where you had to ask me for forgiveness because you were doing things with investors, but it was the right thing, and a leader has to understand that balance. And those are a couple of things as I reflect on my time with you, especially in the marketing role, that have really shown through. Now, what I think is so interesting about Cisco is that the better job you do, the more things you are asked to do. I'm sure you all feel it because you're constantly being asked to do more. Suraj is no different, and that's why, because of the experience he's had, he's got some pretty amazing opportunities.
First online launch, the visual viral virtual launch of ASR 1000. Now that has went on to become a legend. Case studies have been written by Stanford, and by Kellogg School. So it just tells you the bar that we set for how we did it. And Doug and team did a phenomenal job of pulling it together and just to push the envelope. We took some tremendous risk. For those who remember the tutus, it was a pretty risky one. I still remember Sue telling me, hey, this goes viral and goes wrong, you're fired. And boy, did she mean it. I could tell that. She's been joking about it ever since then. But it was a risk that we took, and it paid off. And it went on to become a legend by itself. It won the Business Marketing Association's award for the decade, right, for the last 10 years. So that kind of tells you the amazing solution offers here. I think it's unparalleled in the industry. As Pat pointed out, the timing is absolutely right. We have a great momentum behind us. With that, I'll close today's session, and thank you for being here and being part of Cisco.